Did you know that by covering your soil with a layer of mulch, you can increase the amount of water stored in the ground by 80%? But which of these mulches is best at stopping your soil from drying out? To find out, I'm going to run an experiment and measure the water content in soil over several days to find out which mulch is best for you to use in your garden. I'm going to dig up some soil from this garden bed and put it in these glass bowls. I'm aiming for roughly the same weight of soil in each bowl and a flat level surface that comes up to this line around the edge. Then I'm going to add half a litre of water to each bowl, and then I'm going to cover the soil in each bowl with an inch of mulch so that the bowl is filled. I'm going to test organic compost, dried grass clippings or hay, landscaping bark or wood chip, and hemp animal bedding, and I'm going to leave one bowl uncovered as a control test. Then I'll measure the weight of each bowl a few times a day and subtract the original weights to calculate how much water has evaporated from each bowl. And in a few days' time, we should have a good idea of which mulch is going to be best at preventing our soil from drying out. That's because the water content in our gardens is determined by a few factors which this experiment is trying to recreate. When it rains or when you water your garden, the surface of the soil will start to absorb moisture and saturate, and then the water will move deeper into the ground where it's drier to try and even out the water pressure. But direct sun exposure, high temperatures and strong winds all act to evaporate water at the surface, and the ground starts to dry out. By adding a mulch, we can reduce how much water is lost to evaporation and allow our soil to hold on to more moisture. That means our gardens become more drought resistant, our plants will have access to more water, and we can use much less of it to keep growing our veg. This experiment has the exact same inputs and outputs, and we can measure how well a mulch will stop water evaporating from our garden beds by measuring the weight of each bowl over time. It's been 3 very sunny and quite breezy days, which are the perfect conditions for evaporation, and some quite interesting things have happened. The first is that the no mulch bowl dried out super quickly. In fact, by the next evening, only about 30 hours later, the bowl had already lost 500 grams, which means that the half a litre of water that I added had already evaporated. This is why it's so important to mulch raised beds and pots, otherwise you need to water them every single day. Over the next day or two, the moisture that was already present in the uncovered soil had started to evaporate too, which is why this graph of water loss goes below 500 mils and why the soil in the bottom of the bowl looks grainy and dry. It's also why the moisture sensor is really difficult to get in and probably doesn't detect much moisture. But what was surprising was just how quickly the water evaporated in the compost. It's almost like the water didn't see a barrier, wicked its way up to the surface and then evaporated just like it did in the bare soil. It looked to me like it held on to more water and for longer than the bare soil too, but the data would suggest that compost is a completely ineffective mulch and you shouldn't rely on it to keep moisture in your garden beds. The next best at retaining water was bark, and while the surface did dry out, it managed to trap some of the water in the soil with about 80 ml of the initial 500 mils still in there. It can be a little expensive, but as well as increasing the amount of water available to plants, bark and wood chip can also add nutrients to soil as they break down. It can be a little more difficult to get hold of organic bark, but if you can find some, it's definitely worth using it on your garden beds or in the paths that run in between. Next up is hemp. I normally use it in my chicken coop as bedding because it's really absorbent, and I was curious about how it would behave as a mulch. As you can see in the graph, it did a seriously good job, outperforming the rest and only losing 20% of the water that I added over the 3 days. The soil underneath is still moist, and judging by the graph, I could probably not water this for another week or so. So if you want to cut your water usage, then hemp is definitely worth a try. The last mulch I tried was grass clippings, which is totally free, and because it comes from my own garden, I know there's no pesticides. So if I wanted any of these to do well, it was going to be this one. And looking at the data, it did really well, almost keeping up with the hemp over the 3 days and only losing 30 millilitres more by the end of the experiment. That means it lost about a quarter of the water, while the hemp lost about a fifth, so it really was close between the two. The main drawback of using grass clippings is the risk of scattering seed in your garden beds. But if you cut the grass while it's short, before the seed has had a chance to form, it really shouldn't be an issue. While using a mulch will reduce how much water you need to use, the issue is that when you water your garden, you're still mostly watering the surface of the mulch and still wasting loads of water to evaporation. To stop this and to water your garden as efficiently as possible, you should watch this video here, while I install soaker hoses in my garden beds. It directly waters the soil underneath the mulch, protecting it from fast evaporation. And it happens on a timer while I'm still tucked away in bed. So I'll see you up there, and as always, happy gardening.